In this episode, I'll describe the Crowdstory approach to enterprise storytelling. We begin with the underlying belief that the best stories are in the field. This is true whether the end customer, sales team that won the deal, partner, or subject matter expert is telling the story. Put simply, the person in the field has direct experience on why customers buy. At a high level, the Crowdstory approach thinks of each person's story as data that can be utilized to ultimately create content. In order to extract this data, we start with the story architecture that consists of a standardized set of questions. We utilize these questions to interview each identified stakeholder. Their raw responses become our story data. Because no one speaks in complete sentences, we next go through a process to cleanse the interview transcripts to create readable story underneath each question. If we have a win story, this cleansed story can be directly used to create who collateral, such as internal win slides or public-facing case studies. All individual stories are then fed into our story analysis where we identify patterns. For instance, if we ask 10 sales reps what their customer benefit was, we can aggregate the 10 answers into one place and then normalize that data by finding the common storyline. This normalized story then gets put into a messaging framework as a Word document. This Word document can be sent around to the various stakeholders for feedback until we have an agreed upon messaging framework. From the messaging framework, we can create a number of pieces of collateral, from sales accelerators to at-a-glances to customer-facing decks. The creation of this content and approval is fairly quick because we're utilizing already agreed upon story content. And given we're utilizing the messaging framework as a source of data, the story is told consistently across all collateral. Next, I'll walk through each step in a bit more detail. In this first step, we need to standardize a set of questions. We have templates we can use to start with. It's important to have a good idea of what type of final collateral we want to ultimately create to ensure we're asking the right questions needed to create this content. Step 2 involves interviewing the identified storytellers. For this step, we do need assistance from the customer in giving us introductions to the people to be interviewed. Once we have the email introductions, we can take it from there. In step 3, we take the raw transcripts from the interview and clean the story so the storyteller's answers are clearly readable under each question. We also summarize major points made. If story data is for a customer win, then this cleansed story can be used for what we call who stories. There are many examples of who story collateral such as public case studies, internal win slides, and external win slides. We can also create other content types such as a chapter in a book or as a module for an online mobile class. In step 4, we aggregate the answers given and normalize the data. For instance, if we ask 10 sales reps storytelling a customer win what their customers' organizational challenges were, we can then aggregate the 10 answers into one place and look for patterns. Our, quote, story data scientist, unquote, then looks for patterns to identify the major points in supporting text. In step 5, we create the messaging framework. For the most part, this involves copying and pasting from the story analysis directly into the messaging framework. However, there are other parts such as the story in 50 words and the overall storyline that we answer by further normalizing the content in the story framework. Now that we have the messaging framework in a Word document, we can easily send it around to the identified stakeholders for feedback until we have an agreed upon document. It's important to note that the messaging framework is not intended to be a static document that becomes outdated. Over time, such as when new features are being released, we can conduct further interviews to update the messaging framework. In step 7, we utilize the content from the messaging framework to create sales and marketing collateral. There are a number of types of collateral that can be created, such as sales accelerators, 2-page at-a-glances, customer-facing decks, partner call guides, etc. There are 4 core feature benefits to the Crowdstory approach to storytelling. First, and perhaps more important, the quality of the storytelling improves because we're utilizing the stories told from the field. As well, the story is being consistently told across the various collateral. This also means we tend to have quicker sales buy-in because it's their story being told with the various pieces of resulting collateral. Second, our standardized process leads to high levels of efficiencies as we utilize the storytelling engine. This tends to mean we get content out quicker and at a lower cost than doing a bunch of one-off collateral creation projects. Third, the process is scalable as we've proven we can go from 3 interviews to 50 or more. And finally, as an outsourced service, we take care of this for you. We just need the first pointers to the people to interview, and we take it from there. And that concludes this episode on the Crowdstory approach to enterprise storytelling. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me.